Behind me, in this building, is where European powers agreed on how to carve up Africa. Perhaps unsurprisingly, not a single African was invited. It was called the Berlin Conference, and it reshaped the map of the African continent to roughly what it looks like today. Let me explain. In the late 19th century, Europe's great powers were in a frenzy to seize Africa's resources: rubber, gold, palm oil, as well as land to expand their empires. It's known as the scramble for Africa. The only problem that concerned them, they were starting to fight over who owned what. So, to avoid all-out war between themselves, they did what politicians often do. They called a conference. The German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck invited them all to his place, here, to haggle over who got what. The British, the French, the Belgians, among others, all staking their claim. Again, there was no African representation, and the Sultan of Zanzibar's request to be invited was dismissed. After 3 months of negotiations, in February 1885, they signed the General Act, a treaty that established their legal claim to partition and occupy Africa. It even promised to protect African people's moral and material well-being. But what followed was exploitation on a massive scale. King Leopold of Belgium, for instance, took personal control of the Congo, subjecting its people to immense brutality. Millions were worked to death on rubber plantations. Victims even had limbs amputated if they didn't meet quotas. Entire African nations and cultures were divided, and diverse groups were lumped together. Rival groups were forced to coexist. Many only found out their lands were claimed when European soldiers showed up. Within 5 years, the colonization of African territory went from 20 to 90%. Africans successfully fought for independence over the following decades, with most countries being liberated between the 1950s and 70s. But researchers say building free and stable nations was difficult due to how much damage colonization had done. So, borders drawn here, with no regard to local history or ownership, have left deep scars that continue to shape Africa's geopolitical struggles to this day.